So maybe this is a specificity of the French system. And national urban policy, you have to have a minister, of course, a ministry for cities. You have to have a national agency. You have to have a national funding system, national assessment system. And the institution is really the most significant tool to address urban issues. And the third specificity, which I guess is more French, but it's also very German, but maybe Hubert will correct me. It's the centrality of the public and of the politic actors in the governance system. In the UK, definitely UK, it's another country. It's another way of looking at societies, in which you have partnership, and even when Alan Harding talked about regional development agency, the regional development agency in England are appointed by central government by, they are what they call business-led. That means private firms control them in a way. In France, this is impossible. The specificity of the French system is that the public and the political actors is in the heart of the decision-making system. So of course you cannot replicate that in England, or even I would say in Italy it's a bit different. Question 4: the most successful aspects which could be used to make recommendations to other countries, for instance. Well, that's very difficult also. But I think you have 3 successful aspects, I would say, of the French national urban policies. The first one is that the linkages that we have tried consistently to make between institutional reforms, planning reforms, process reforms, reforms the process of making policies. That we have a sentence which summarizes this, which is a territory, a project, and a contract. So the territory is the metropolitan area, the project is a strategy, or let's say the vision that this metropolitan area should have to develop itself in the future, and the contract is, because of this vision, the state will sign a contract with the metropolitan area. So this was the ideal of the 3 most important laws that you talk about in your paper at the end of the 1990s. Institutional reforms, reforms in terms of putting the project, I mean the vision of the territory, to establish a strategy, and in order for this strategy to be implemented, to sign a contract between the state will sign a contract. The state will say, okay, I agree with this strategy, I will sign a contract meaning that, for instance, subsidies will go to fund some actions. The policies for cities, for instance, the contract, in policies of city we have the contract system, the contrat de ville, they will go in this contract, which we call contrat d'agglomération. So we have tried, it doesn't work very well. But I think it's interesting to keep on working on that with the correspondence between the spatial level, in fact, the institutional system, and the measures, action, policies, and strategy at this very level. The second thing is the role of the state. And the role of the state, maybe this was a difference between the Italian system, the Italian laws regarding metropolitan cities, and in France. If we could say that in France, for instance, the 1999 law act on institutional cooperation has been a success, it's because the state has decided to give financial incentives to municipalities which accepted to cooperate. So the effectiveness of policies was not enough. You had a financial incentive for local government who could, who decided to cooperate, and it worked rather well. The third successful aspect, I would say, is the creation in France of the what we call the agglomeration or the metropolitan business tax. It's a new business tax which is to be shared among all local governments belonging to the same metropolitan area. And the state created that in 1999. And it has been very successful because, I mean, this tax goes not to local governments, to municipalities, but to the joint authority. And this is the most important local tax, in fact. And this business tax can be used to have metropolitan projects. So it helps a lot in thinking about policies at the metropolitan level. The mistakes now. I've tried to figure out mistakes, impossible in our case. I found five mistakes, at least. One I mentioned before, which is the wrong scale reforms of decentralization, focusing on traditional local governments, municipalities and departments, instead of focusing on metropolitan or urban areas as such, in functional terms. And since then, so this was the first Decentralization Act at the beginning of the 1980s, and since then we have tried to compensate for that.